We are in the 21st century. Science and technology rules the world. And yet, there is so much conversation going around about religion, tradition, culture, customs. And none of us really know what it's all about. When we talk about Hindu culture, what is Hindu culture? Who is a Hindu? What are you supposed to do as a Hindu? And is this culture something which has come down from generations, or is it something that moves with the times? We talk about dharma. Is dharma religion? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about swadharma. Is he talking about religion? According to him, swadharma is your raison d'etre, or what is like heat is the dharma of fire. Teaching is the dharma of a teacher. So dharma really is not anything about religion. What is Sanatana Dharma then? It's a universal dharma which applies to everybody. Americans, Indians, Guatemalans, everybody. So isn't it good to know what these things are? Especially because it's creating so much of a rift in society today, because people really haven't understood what it's all about. And it is important because it's basically a foundation for who we are, what we are. And to discuss this, I have with me Soumya Seetaraman, who has just come out with a very, very voluminous, literally voluminous book on this subject. And I welcomed Soumya today to this show to tell us all about it and just make us understand what Sanatana Dharma is all about. Welcome, Soumya.
Hello and namaskaram. Thank you.
Namaskaram.
Pleasure to be here.
Namaskaram. That sounds much better than hello. At least to do with the topic that we are talking about.
Well, one has to be able to say both and be both in this day and age, I think.
Yes.
It's so important to understand your roots and your traditions and where things come from and why they come from there. And at the same time, be able to step to it with the next person on the street, wherever you are in the world.
Okay. Just tell me the main aspects of your life, like where did you study and what gave you an interest in this whole subject and how did you go about it?
I grew up in Mylapore in Chennai and in a family that is extremely talented in all the arts. And I got deeply rooted in my taste for culture from my paternal grandmother, who could play the veena, she could sing, she knew a lot about painting and art, and she took me to the temple very frequently. We used to watch how every deity was decorated before the Utsavam, and I used to find those things absolutely fascinating. And fast forward through a random education that was on the whole generally happy, and I was given freedom and a lot of independence by my parents to grow up with a free will. I married a wonderful, wonderful man who happens to have the same interests that I do.
What's it, an arranged
He loves
marriage?
history. No, we fell in love.
Oh, okay.
But it could be, you could say it was destined to be. I mean, the families knew each other and it just happened. And everybody was all the more pleased for it. It was nice to say. He is extremely interested in culture, in music, in literature, in our history.
Pardon me if I'm right or wrong or whatever. People who grow up in Chennai generally are into all this, isn't it?
You can't help but being inured
Because
in
the
something
whole
like
environment
that.
is
The environment is like that, but
buzzing.
of course there are lots of people who aren't. But it does help to grow in an environment that is steeped in these kinds of things, in the culture and the joy of celebrating. And so we came from very similar backgrounds and we had a lot in common. And above everything else, I felt that he was somebody that I respect and learn from all my life. So it's been a beautiful journey. We'll be 25 years next year.
okay.
And through this journey, we've actually moved around a bit. We lived in California for 10 years. Yeah, I graduated from San Francisco and, I lived 10 years of my life there. You don't know how to make tair curd and you don't need to. There's great Bulgarian culture buttermilk every time you need it.
Okay.
And so it was a very different 10 years.
This is after you got married.
Oh, yeah. So between the time I was, 20 and 30, I was in the US, and my child was born there, our only son. And, I did whatever I could out there. In those days, you couldn't see another Indian where we lived.
Really?
So it's not like today where you...
It's full of them.
It's crazy today. You go and everybody is wishing you happy Deepavali there. But... So it's just a very different ball game. It was a different ball game then. And I realized, Halloween and Deepavali came about the same time. And I was trying to figure out, how to explain this whole thing to the children. And I used the pumpkins to make Ravana heads and, weave in the different stories. But I realized I didn't really know enough. And so I started asking my family. I started asking lots of other people. I looked for books. And there was no one place that brought the kolams together, that brought the Nevedyams together with any semblance of the tip as to what makes the difference between a general Nevedyam and the perfect one. Because you see, everybody wants their Nevedyam to taste the way their mother or their party used to do it.
Will you just translate Nevedyam to our listeners who don't know Tamil, please?
Nevedyam, actually, it's a Sanskrit word. And Nevedyam is something that is made as an offering.
Okay.
For...
It's like prasada?
Prasad is what you get after.
Okay.
So
Nevedyam is what you offer.
What you offer, which conveys your energy to the divine. And the prasad comes with the blessings.
Okay.
So it's what you make and offer.
All right.
And these things are very specialized dishes you make once a year, So the expectation is very high and they're very delicate, complicated dishes. How do you get them right?
Okay.
And, what is the purpose of the celebration? Why should you sit there, half a world away and even bother? What would motivate you to do that? And that's when I started compiling information and then I put it together in the form of a book. I took it to Random House and they loved it. And
what do you call the book?
Follow the Hindu Moon.
Okay.
Follow the Hindu Moon.
So is the Hindu moon different from a Muslim moon or a Christian moon or something?
That's not the idea. The point is these are Hindu festivals these are festivals based on the Sanatana Dharma. And they're called Hindu because we all know only that.
What is the significance of moon there?
The Panchangam, the Tithis that make up the festival. So,
which is guided by the moon?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you say Vinayaka Chaturthi or Ganesh Chaturthi, it's the Chaturthi, which is a Tithi, which is the fourth day after the moon. So Chaturthi can be the fourth day after the full moon or the new moon. So that's the Krishna Paksha and the Shukla Paksha that you have.
Okay.
So a lot of our festivals are dictated by where the moon is.
Oh.
And that's why it's
I think even with this one's Muslims also, isn't it?
Yes. I mean,
they also
a lot of the traditions are similar until the calendar actually partially got changed. But there's a whole technical ocean behind these statements. So, I've given a lot of the details in the book.
Okay.
There's an entire chapter that's devoted to cosmology and the calendar. So it was an incredible amount of research that I had to do. I had to speak to experts at various fields. But I enjoyed the process so much. And I come from a background where I did interdisciplinary science. So I found I was happily able to scale the mathematics and the science required. At the same time, enjoy reading verses from the Rig Veda or the Yajur Veda as required.
Do you know Sanskrit?
I do know Sanskrit.
Okay. You studied in school?
I studied in school.
Okay.
And of course, the Vedanta or Vedic Sanskrit is different. But with the right intent, you can do anything and you can achieve anything. You need the right gurus. And in an endeavor like this that was so positive, I found that people opened their doors and their hearts to me. Where I'd go for an interview with an elderly lady, they became friends. They invited me over to have lunch with them. And they, out of their way to make the most elaborate, exquisite meal. And I keep in touch with all these people. Even today, I call them up wherever they are and talk to them, find out how their health is. Many of the interviews would not happen on time because they were elderly people. Sometimes they were not well, not available. And it took 7 years.
Did they know enough, these elderly people? Did they know enough to give you...
See, the thing about it was everybody is diffident where they don't need to be because they don't feel that they know enough.
Okay.
But what I did was I just made them confident that yes, what you know is valuable. You know your piece. And when I put together
You string it
hundreds of
together.
little pieces, you see a very distinct overlap. And you pick on the pattern and then you say, well, these are the fundamentals and these are the extras. And each one should talk to their own family as to what that extra should be. I realized that the basic beauty of the Sanatana Dharma and this culture is everybody is given a concept and allowed to run with it the way they feel best, with what materials they have at hand. So when you take a concept like, say, cleansing, you can take it whether it is after Shankranti or the Deepavali Snanam. Everybody has a different way of doing it. The people who live near the Ganga don't do anything except have a Ganga Snan there.
They're going to have a dip in the Ganga.
Yeah. Here we make an elaborate oil and we put all kinds of ingredients because it's chill, and then we do it this way. The sweets that you make change from place to place depending on what resources you have at hand. So there was that freedom of expression, if you will, based on a concept. And to my mind, I was a professional artist in the US. I painted and I curated exhibitions over there at museums and galleries. And to my mind, our ancestors have taken ideas and made them into the finest forms of art. Because what is fine art? It is to take a concept and put it in the best method possible, to express it in the best way possible. But here they've given each one of us the power of that expression. So there is no right or wrong. It's just that you embrace the concept in a different way.
Interpret it
embrace it, articulate it. And the traditions that are handed down from family, down a family, of course, always builds happy memories. So you love the way something is done, or you want something to be followed a certain way only because it has memories of joy and togetherness with it.
So you say that the whole thing about Sanatana Dharma is based on joy.
Yes, on fluidity. I mean, the original idea of the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, except that here liberty is moksha, right? You're allowed your artha and your kama. It is considered essential in life. But you have to do it with the right motivations. And you have to aspire for something way beyond that. And if each individual is given that idea saying, yes, be successful, be happy, but do it from a fundament of goodness, then the goodness and the happiness spreads to everybody else. You're sharing, not hoarding. Hoarding was not considered a good thing. It was always to give, to consider the other. Atithi Devo Bhava. So that does spread that happiness. And the motivations that an individual has, what you have and what you project affects how people around you react to you. And if each one of us had that change, intrinsic change within ourselves, it's possible. And if you look at all the festivals, I realized the way Maria Montessori had designed play school, learning through activity, our ancestors had put down Vedanta as learning through activity in a festival. So you light that lamp for Deepavali to remove ajnanam, to remove the darkness of your heart and your mind, to remove anger and hatred. You clean during Bhogi, so that again it's a physical cleansing that leads to an internal cleansing. You make puffed rice balls for Kartikeya, because that is a way to remind you that the goal is not to have rebirth. Puffed rice does not sprout. So whether you're making a sweet, or whether you're lighting a lamp, or whether you're making a decoration, you're thinking about better things. And every festival connects you back to nature, connects you back to different elements, so that you understand the oneness of everything. Because the Dharma does tell you that Maya and Ishvara together is what causes life. And that is in everything. We don't have anything such as living and non-living in our culture. Everything has life.
Yeah.
And it is from that energy that we all draw from, and it's that energy that we're all connected by. So everything is respected, which is why in Saraswati Puja you're taught, if you stepped on something, you touch it to your eyes, because you respect that thing, object also. You don't kick it around. Goal-oriented theorists talk about in terms of, visualization of a goal, and then mental exercises acting towards it, and then the final physical accomplishment is what the entire process of Saraswati Puja and Vijay Dashami are all about. You visualize success. You're 80% there. Plus you get blessings in return. So how can you possibly fail?
But tell me, aren't we all kind of, falling into what we call ritualistic way of doing all these things? Because not many know all these. Do Saraswati Puja, okay, it is just done as a ritual. Nobody knows that this is the concept behind it. Nobody tells anybody because nobody knows how to explain it to them. So aren't we going a little away from the concept and just sticking to rituals?
Well, it goes in cycles, I think. I mean, we have to have the discipline first.
Yeah.
Because after all, what is a ritual? It's a discipline. The army, which is a highly functioning body, has the highest number of rituals, if you think of it that way.
Yes.
We all brush our teeth in the morning. And how do you explain to a toddler what brushing the teeth is going to do, right? So we all have our daily rituals. The thing is, we have to believe in them, we have to practice them, but then it's up to us to go to that extra step and find out what it's all about. And some things may have a certain meaning for me. It may have a different level of meaning for you. It's not congregational. It's not that everybody has to be in step. Everybody has a different level that they're working towards. The question is to ask. And when you're sincere about asking, you find that avenues with answers open up. So how interested are you really in finding out what it is all about? And it can go as far as you wish it to go. I find that everything is circling back to Advaita and Aham Brahmasmi in what I'm doing right now. I mean, all these roads, I started with festivals which were full of joy and fun and food and columns and family get-togethers and beautiful festoons and craft and flowers and fragrances. And, you have all these amazing sensory experiences. And then you find that search is leading me particularly down a completely different stream where I'm seeing so much of Vedanta in each festival. So I asked, are you asking? Is somebody else asking? If you really ask, you will find an opportunity to find a way. And I've tried to make it easy for people by articulating what I have found and the connections I've made in Follow the Hindu Moon at every step.
You were talking about how you went and met all the elderly people in the community to give you some inputs into it. What was their attitude towards it? In the sense that, did they give it to you, okay, this is what we did and this is what we understood way? Or did they give it to you like, today nobody bothers about all these, but this is... Generally they say, oh, the next generation, they don't bother about all these things. So were they very condescending about it? That's what I want to
No, they were very excited. Because all of a sudden, these elderly people had a chance to talk about what they knew best. And they went back in time and they lived out some amazing memories. And they told me such stories that sometimes the family would gather around and say, Amma, you didn't tell us this, or Ajji,
exactly.
I never heard this before.
Yes.
And so it evoked something in them. And so it was very spontaneous. And then they remembered things, so they brought together things, they opened lockers and they took out silver ornaments or pictures of Devis or specific songs. Families together started hunting down information on their traditions and their memories for me. And in some ways it helped them revive and unite and bond in their own way. And in other ways it completely fed this process that I was working on.
How long did it take you to complete the book?
7 years.
You took 7 years to
7 years from beginning to end, yes.
Okay, this I think Parikshit took 7 days to understand everything.
Well,
you remember? He was destined to die and within 7 days he says, I want to find out.
He was
so
blessed.
7 is a very...
Yeah, 7 is very auspicious.
Auspicious. Let's take a small break and come back and talk about the 7 auspicious.
Wonderful.
We are back after the short break and here you're listening to It's My Life with your host Chaya Srivatsa and my guest Soumya. Soumya is talking about the auspicious number 7 number. Yes.
Yes.
It took her 7 years to write a book, Following the Hindu Moon.
Follow the Hindu moon.
Follow the Hindu Moon, which consists of explanation about all the beautiful things we do in festivals.
That's
and
right.
It is out of the research she did with the number of people who gave her inputs. And more about it?
Well, I got inputs from different kinds of people. So I spoke to people, the Ganapadigals. I spoke to astrologers. I spoke to astronomers. I spoke to homemakers.
Okay.
Because there are so many aspects to each festival
And
that we celebrate.
also all the communities from the Hindu.
Yes, as many as across the board. I took the southern 4 states, and people often ask me, why didn't you generalize it to all of India? I didn't want to write a book saying, oh, it was a happy day and everyone lit lights.
Okay.
I wanted it to be a guide that replaced the joint family system. Because at home, we used to have a grandmother or a great-grandmother who would just sit there and say, okay, take this, put it there, roll this, light the lamp. And they were like walking encyclopedias that were guidebooks and, help. And so they would actually fill in all the gaps. And suddenly we are all these nuclear families, 3 people, 4 people to a home. And we don't know what to do. There's no one to tell us what to do, how to do it, what to watch out for, what the tricks are, how to prevent something like a shide, which is a particular dish that you make for Krishna Janmashtami, break while you're frying it. So
it's not just culture; it's also cuisine.
Yes. I have more recipes in there than some of the regular cookbooks.
You mean you have recipes in this book?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course. I have a Nevedyam section that is 60 something Nevedyams. I have kolams, rangolis for every puja. I have an entire section with astronomy and mathematics.
Have you illustrated it yourself? Because you're an artist?
No, I actually had photographs done by Usha Chris. She is
she's a well-known
photographer, and she's done some amazing work. I'm glad you've heard about her.
Yes,
she's my mother.
She is?
Yes.
Oh.
So,
okay.
yes, she's an extremely talented person, and we work very well together. We complement each other beautifully. And even in my new venture to bring shows on our culture for television, she's my photography partner. So she mans the cameras, and she has a beautiful eye for light. And that's what makes the difference between her photographs and
someone else's.
Somebody else does.
Okay.
So we worked on this, she gave me photographs on demand.
I can imagine.
Pretty much. But I was very fortunate, because without that, the book wouldn't be what it is today. And my next book is on Sandhya Vandanam, and it's also kind of taking 7 years to finish.
Just on Sandhya Vandanam?
Just on Sandhya Vandanam.
And you're taking 7 years to complete it?
Yes. I think it's going to be as big and monumental as the previous one.
What is there so much about it to talk about?
Oh, every step of the way, the beauty, the way ideas have been threaded together, and how they have brought the simplicity of a physical action and the idea of intent, and taken a person deeper and deeper into true identity of the self. Every step is not just what it seems. So I started with a general idea of the Sandhya Vandanam. I mean, it started because my son got his Upanayanam done, and at some point I said, let me figure out what this is all about. And I started getting drawn into the ideas and the philosophy and why we did it, what happened, what made the education system break, what does the sacred thread really connote, why do you have certain kinds of foods, why do you even say, when you say Suryascha ma manyuscha manyupatescha manyukritebhyaha, what does it all mean, And that led me into different forums where I've actually discovered the result of intent, thought, word, and deed on people. And so it's changed me. Just writing that book, I find that I hope to other people's eyes, but I feel very much different from what I used to be. I feel that I'm much more refined as a person, refined in my thought, in my ideas, in my approach to life. And I'm just writing it. Imagine people practicing it with a real understanding of what they're doing.
Unfortunately, Soumya, see, it's the Tambrahms who do the Sandhya Vandanam.
Actually, no. According to
Brahmins.
Sanatana Dharma,
All the Brahmins.
Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas,
Okay.
all of them have Sandhya Vandanam.
All right. But that is a result of the Brahmopadesham.
Yes.
Where they wear the holy thread.
Sacred thread.
Today,
yes.
it is just done like a social get-together.
That's only the Upanayana.
I'm talking about that itself. After which only you do the Sandhya Vandana.
Correct.
Okay. Now, who is going to teach this youngster how to go about it? Because even the priests who conduct all these things, even they don't know the aspects about it, because even they have just ritualistically learnt it. So don't you think we need to introduce these things if we are going to keep this culture alive?
I think I would correct you if I may on that account.
Sure, yeah.
I have been to a lot of Upanayanams where the priests have very sweetly
Explained everything.
each step
Sure.
to the child.
Okay.
And of course, the child is very young, so it's very hard for the child to absorb everything. But if the family has recorded it, you can watch it. And I find kids are interested intrinsically of their own right. There is a child that I know that the father doesn't do the Sandhya Vandanam. But this kid has taken it upon himself to do it and to ask questions. The family actually came asking me, as to what I could tell this 8-year-old. So I wrote up a mini book just for him and gave it to him as a gift, saying that if you have any questions, ask me beyond this. And so there are children who are not only asking questions, there are adults who are beginning to revisit this because their children want to know. And I think it's a revival where we have been through the cycles of material gathering. And now people are asking, now what? I have money, I have family, I've got everything I need. I've traveled all over the world. I've experienced a lot of pleasure. Now what? And the kids, when they go back, they're forcing these adults who have lost their way to go back with them.
But again, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think this revival is happening more in the West than it's happening in India.
I think it's happening in both places. I think it's really happening in both places. I cannot speak for the majority anywhere. It starts small always. And at some point, it will snowball, because when people embrace ideas with belief, definitely they will carry other people with them. And it's that conviction that changes everything. There are 2 generations between today's youngster and the people who practiced it before, who actually gave up on everything. And it's not, why do we not even know that the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas have a Sandhya Vandanam? It's because life changed. And with it, a lot of their traditions were lost. But let's never forget that the Chandogya Upanishad was handed to Gautama Rishi by a Raja.
Who's a Kshatriya.
Buddha was a Kshatriya. He studied the Veda. How we don't even think, we don't even question. Janaka was a Raja Rishi. So all of them learnt the Veda.
So the Veda was something like a book of knowledge. That's all.
An ocean of knowledge.
Okay. Ocean of knowledge.
What book would contain the Veda?
And it's not necessarily limited to only the Hindus or a particular community.
What is the Hindu?
Veda is nothing but...
Veda contains the Sanatana Dharma.
Okay.
What is the Hindu? A Hindu is someone who practices the Sanatana Dharma. Now, why have we been able to, as a nation, absorb all values and cultures? We're the only country in the entire world to have every religion come in and to be able to absorb them into our fold. In our own family, we find people who have pictures of Saraswati and Lakshmi and Buddha and Jesus Christ and everybody else, because there is no distinction. A great person who has found the way is a great person who has found the way. So this is the root that makes us strong and makes us great. There is one of our friends who actually...
Here, I'm just going to digress a little here. You said this is the thing which makes us great, makes us strong, because we are open and flexible. But that very openness and flexibility is taking us also away from it. We are very easily converted into other thoughts. Okay, where we don't have any rigidity about us, so it's so much easier to get into something else who can convince us about it.
if you think of the time span that the Sanatana Dharma has survived, and I'm talking about tens of thousands of years.
Sure.
The Mahabharata war happened, and let's state it right here and now. It was something that actually happened. It took a white man to find out the fact that Dwaraka was submerged, and thanks to the late Dr. S.R. Rao, we've actually found through marine archaeology the hidden city of Dwaraka. It survived the war, it survived the submergence of Dwaraka, it survived 500 years of invasions in the border. It has survived, Mughal tyranny, where if you were a Hindu and you did not convert to Islam, you were supposed to pay extra tax, and you were really squeezed financially. It survived British tyranny. So there is a lot that it has survived. And going through ups and downs is a natural cycle of anything. Yes, we have embraced everything. Yes, we do very easily allow other people to now dictate terms to us or tell us what things are. We have stopped thinking for ourselves.
Yes, that's it.
And the Sanatana Dharma does not at any moment tell you to not think. And so we've actually bred a generation of people that's just happy to be in the mode of, material acquisition. But at some point they're going to think. And at some point they're going to ask for the meaning of their life. And at some point it's all going to come back to the Dharma. And this Dharma belongs to everybody.
That's why it's Sanatana.
That's why it's called Sanatana Dharma. So a good person, whoever they are, however they, whatever they follow, is following their own Dharma. Back to the idea of Swadharma. There is no right or wrong. There is no one way of doing things. It's almost like the clothes that we traditionally wear, that you can wrap in so many different ways. It's non-restrictive. Your body can bloat, your body can shrink. It's still the same article of clothing that you can wear. And it all comes around to that. So it'll come back. People are asking questions. All is not lost.
Can we do it in a more structured manner? Where is it available? Okay. Now, for example, the Muslims do have their mosque, and they have certain rituals which they have to follow 5 times a day or whatever. However highly educated you are, they still do those things. Okay? You have the Christians who go to church every Sunday, and they go for mass, and they listen to the preacher, the parish priest. They do all those things. But what do? We just go to a temple to break a coconut and to ring the bell. We don't do those things in a structured manner.
Dharma doesn't mean that you're a pushover. And a lot of people are happy to be pushed over today. They're happy if somebody turns out, in India you have so many people who are mean to women. Oh, yes. We're very happy to take that. Or if they say, in India you have horrible system where, you're doing this, you have caste. I mean, we don't even think before we agree to something somebody says. Every community in the world has caste. They don't call it caste. But what are the lords of England all about? It's a caste. They choose to use that word on us and impose this kind of differentiation wherever they've set their footprint. But they have distinctions in their own communities. To say they don't is a lie. What about all the ghettos in America? Why are certain people, women didn't even have the right to vote till very recently.
Yeah.
Whereas women in India have been empowered for ages. And women in the panchayats are beginning to take their power into their own hands. The Indian woman has never been a walkover. Maybe the middle class has had some sort of problems because they have to conform to this or conform to that, and we are straddling a weird Western education that doesn't really fit in with our tradition. So we don't know what to be. But at some point we need to take stock of ourselves and say, hey, wait a minute. I can be flexible, but I don't need to be broken. And that's the difference.
And don't need to be brainwashed.
We don't need to be brainwashed. We need to have a brain first.
Yeah. You need to think.
You need to think.
Yes.
And, the congregational way of doing things is all very well. But the whole idea of Sanatana Dharma is you're going through different lives to learn different lessons. Your lesson is not the same as mine. So how can you and I do the same thing at the same time? It doesn't work. But we can come together for a common purpose, for a community yagam, for an utsavam, for various activities. Yes, we can all come together. We all have a role to play in the community. There are groups that are prescribed which are catering to developing Sanatana Dharma and reaching out to people. There are satsangs that are held by a lot of very, very good acharyas.
Yeah.
The Chinmaya mission has been doing a fantastic job. The Ramakrishna mission has been doing a fantastic job.
That's why I said it's all scattered, fragmented, because each one has their own interpretation to the whole thing, and they all become a cult after some time.
But you see, what I realized was, as long as they're leading people to do the right thing
Yes.
and develop the right values, it will all work out in the end. Initially, I was also fraught with, oh my God, this person is saying this and that person is saying that, and these people follow, this third individual in such a way and call this individual by such and such name. And I know, how does it all fit in, these new age gurus, these old fashioned gurus? How does it all come together?
And the ones, the Kathakalakshepas, and then something else will be on. The new age gurus are not into Kathakalakshepas. They're more
but
into...
see, that's where the pattern of Sanatana Dharma has dealt with the entire gamut of the capacity of society.
understanding of society.
Yeah. So you have the extreme intellectual on one side, and you have absolute discourses on Vedanta down the deep end on the one side.
Correct.
You have the Kanchi Acharyas who, I guess, personify that level of austerity, the lack of material things that were, and you'll find them always laughing, always smiling, no matter what happens to them. And on the other hand, you have, basics happening like the Katha Kalakshepa, or you'll find in some village, there'll be somebody playing one tabla and some harmonium going completely off key, a singer singing into a loudspeaker.
Yes.
And we live in rural Karnataka, and all the sounds used to float down to my bedroom at night, and it goes on all night. And then I initially used to say, oh my God, what
Nuisance.
racket. It doesn't even sound nice to the ear. But then I realized that this was the way of transmitting dharma to the illiterate. Not everybody can read and write. Yes.
Yeah, the way they can understand. Relate to.
So that dharma shankata that Rama faced, or the dharma shankata that Arjuna faced, or what Kunti's thought process was, or somebody else for that matter, that would work in the man's mind as he worked on his field. Oh, I have a similar problem. If he can get over it, I can get over it.
Yeah.
What is the right thing for me to do?
So what they've done is really broken down gods into a very human people who humans can relate to.
Yes.
When you say that the Rama had a dharma sankata, okay.
Yes.
So Rama becomes a human being, not a god.
Absolutely.
Okay. So anybody with going through that kind of a situation, if that's the way he dealt with it,
and it also tells you there is nobody you can put on a pedestal, nobody who's perfect. Everybody is fallible.
yes.
And why do they have Shiva fighting Vishnu and Vishnu fighting Shiva and Brahma? I mean, it makes no sense if you think of it or you perceive it from an outside perspective. But it makes absolutely sense, a lot of sense from the perspective of Sanatana Dharma. That there is nothing that is superior to the pursuit of the ultimate truth. So neither is Brahma, nor Shiva, nor Vishnu, nor anybody superior to the other. Because all these are elements, and the core of all those elements is the ultimate truth, the ultimate realization.
Which is
Aham Brahmasmi. The Maya Shakti Ishvara Tattvamasi. The Maya Ishvara consciousness, the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, which can be seen on two levels. One is the level of the Saguna Aikyam, where you have attributes to it,
And the
and
Nirguna
it's the
ones.
mind. So when the Westerners often say, oh, may his soul rest in peace, they're talking about the mind. Because the mind is that subtle part of ourselves that carries all these ideas, our past memories, and that is the Jivatma in one context. And that Jivatma has a larger Paramatma of the entire universal mind, the universal Saguna consciousness. And then there is that which is nirguna consciousness, because we ourselves say, I caught myself thinking. What do you mean by that? That means there's something higher than your thought. And you are aware of that thing that is watching your own thoughts. What is that is watching your thoughts?
Who is watching it? Who's the person watching it?
It is you.
You? And who am I?
And that which you cannot really comprehend except when you say, oh, I was watching my thoughts. That I is a different Jivatma which has a Paramatma of its own, which is the ultimate Nirguna consciousness.
So don't you think our Hindu philosophy is very, very complicated?
I think it's very exciting.
It's exciting. I agree with you. It's intellectually very stimulating. It's exciting. But it is a little complicating because it takes you down this road which you think, Then you reach the road and then suddenly you get lost again.
Well, that is the exciting part of it, because it forces, what differentiates me and an animal or a plant or anything else? It's my ability to reach that point and say, okay, what's next? Right? And quite often what we do is we come to a junction and we stand under a sign and say, oh, I've reached my destination, not realizing we're standing under a different signpost. And the varieties and combinations for each one of us is so immense. It's like Robert Frost saying the road not taken.
Yeah.
Right? You could go down one way, I could go down one way, but we both will finally
meet somewhere.
At some point, reach the same destination. And that's, to me, what could be more grand? What could be more beautiful than that? And I have the full freedom and the full rights to do that. And if you say, oh, as a woman, you're tied down to this, hey, you know what? That's my dharma. I'm a homemaker. I'm very proud to say that every morning I get up, I cook and send my husband a packed lunch. While, I don't have to do that, but I do it of my own accord. I cook all the meals at home. I maintain my own home. And I have a son for whom I had dedicated so many years of my life, ferrying him to and from school. I've done all that. I still do all that. That is my priority.
That is the Swadharma that
is my
the Gita
dharma
talks about.
As a mother,
yes,
as a wife.
When you choose to be a mom, there is the role of a mom which combines all these things.
Yes.
You cannot say, I'll do half of it and I will not do the half of it.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
And within that commitment, you need to find your space. Mm-hmm. So I chose my career based on what I could do as a mom. I was a freelance painter and I curated exhibitions and I did all of that in the US. I created the first website for South Asian women artists in the Bay Area. And then I illustrated a book called Chachaji's Cup. I wrote Follow the Hindu Moon. I have my own television studio and I produce video documentaries.
On culture. On Hindu culture. Or
it's not necessarily always on Hindu culture. I just did a documentary on a fabulous sculptor called Ganga Vishwanathan.
Okay.
He does these incredible pieces in wood and he casts some of his pieces in
And where are
metal.
these telecast? This is for a particular channel you do it?
A lot of times I air my shows on Sri Shankara.
Okay.
Shankara channel.
Okay.
I do it because they are an extremely good channel to work with.
Yes. Okay.
They come with the right ethics, the right background, and I have found that they've always stood by their word. For me, to have control over what I create is very important.
Yeah.
Because I would like to take it maybe to another level or do something else with it, morph it, and I'd like that control. So I have full freedom with them and they respect what I do. They never ever edit my work. I just give them the commercial break gaps. They put in their commercials and they run the show. So it suits me fine.
Yes.
Because for me, I get an outlet to the right kinds of audiences. Mm-hmm. And it's growing. I'm looking at other avenues of putting these shows up so that people can view it all over the world.
What about YouTube and all that?
YouTube, web TV, different options. I'm considering what to do because right now I've built up a huge archive of special things, Naivedyams, what festivals are all about. I'm also linking in other things to our dharma. We went on a couple of yatras. I've actually hiked to 17,770 feet and went through the Torongla Pass.
Oh, okay.
We went to Muktinath on foot. And, it's rarefied air. It's very difficult terrain. I read a book by somebody else, a white man who'd written about this experience, to say, here I am, an Indian woman, and I thought I wouldn't do too great. I made it across the pass. I somehow always felt, these white guys are probably so good at it. And I actually found that while we had gone through the entire process, even through the most difficult times, with a certain sense of peace and happiness and goodwill towards the porters who had carried us there. Mm-hmm. And to the end, when we were at the pass, we were all shouting out loud, Ganga Mata ki jai, Parvati Devi ki jai. They felt that exuberance and they felt happy to share it with us.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they said, Madam Ji, just like how the way you were was a very different experience for us. Because they get shouted at by these people. If something goes wrong in what was ordered in the menu, they really get yelled at. And it's a very sad thing. And that's what this man read. They took Diamox for altitude sickness. People were peeing into bottles and spilling it all over themselves. It was wretched to read it. And I thought to myself, what a gracious experience we've had. We went to Gangotri, Yamunotri and Tapovan as a family. And those are the kind of vacations we have taken. We've gone on foot. And for miles, there would be nobody in front of you, nobody behind you, all kinds of weather. You congregate at various different points. You're in touch with yourself, the incredible beauty of nature. And wherever you go in the world, whether you're in the Alps or whether you're in the Rockies, it's not the same as the Bhumi of the Himalaya. Mm-hmm. There is that energy there and it's vibrating. And every step of the way you feel that vibration within, it is so, so incredible. And you have to do it with respect. You have to tread that ground with respect. Mm-hmm. You should not trash and leave things behind and smoke and, a lot of people violate the rules.
It's become very commercial, that's why.
Yeah. And
that's why a lot of places like that, Haridwar, Rishikesh, they've all lost that sanctity about them because now you have shops all around the place. The Lakshman Jhula is like, it's no more a Lakshman Jhula.
But at the same time, that's the beauty of this chaos, is that it's up to you to find the sanctity within that chaos.
Yeah. You can also find the sanctity.
We went to the Kumbh Mela and there were 1.5 crore people, 15 million people that one day we went. It was Ratha Saptami. Suddenly we woke up very late to the fact that, Mahakumbh Melas here once in 144 years. We're alive. What are we doing? Let's go. So Arvind asked me, do you want to go? I said, yeah, sure. Within a week we'd planned it. We decided to go. It was Ratha Saptami. So you can imagine the bheed that was there. You will never find in any other place in the world such a huge congregation moving so peacefully.
Really? Okay.
Rivers of people, husbands and wives from villages clutching hands because they didn't want to lose each other. Husbands and wives, the husband is patiently holding one end of her sari and they're drying the sari in the sun. Families thronging together. Strangers helping each other get into the Ganga. There was not an accident, not a death, not a stampede. People were looking out for each other. There was not one lecherous eye in that whole place. And believe me, 1.5 crore people were undressing and dressing together. There was not one lecherous eye. Somebody slips, somebody else's hand was given. You don't know whose hand you're holding. Some woman held on to my husband's hand for dear life and, she did immerse herself. Another scenario, she would have never dreamt of touching his hand. My mother, when she went into for the Kumbh Mela in Haridwar, one Gadwali lady said, "Aao, tum meri Ganga behan ho. You're my Ganga sister. I'll help you." What a thought from a total stranger. And that is the beauty, the love that you still is alive in rural India that you don't see in urban India. In urban India, we need to learn to step back, to smile, to embrace our fellow person, to just relax. And suddenly we'll find everything works. I had no traffic coming here today. I was here half an hour early. It just all worked out.
You know what? We see all these ads about incredible India. After listening to you, I think it is incredible India.
It is.
In spite of its heat and dust, potholes, bad roads, horrible governance, terrible corruption. But there is something throbbing in this country, which is the Sanatana Dharma.
Bharat Mata ki jai.
Bharat Mata ki jai, Hindu ki jai.
Absolutely.
Whoever is here in
Whoever is
Hindustan
here.
is a Hindu.
Yes.
Who respects motherland,
motherland.
is a Hindu. I don't think it's by a god that you worship or anything like that. It's just the feeling that you have. Thank you so much, Soumya. It's been wonderful listening to you, and I do hope our listeners also connect with what you said. And your book, where is it available? Gangaram's?
Atmaram Gangaram does have it, and you could also go to my website www.hindumoon.com.
Okay.
HINDUMOON.com.
Okay.
And you can order it online. We will ship it free in India. It also ships to other parts of the world.
All right.
So
I hope they'll be motivated to pick this up and revive this incredible culture that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.